Now, I'm willing to bet that a large percentage of you have come across annoying Gen Xers decked out in Volcom, Vans, Airwalk, going on about how 90s skate punk was the pinnacle of music and how Epitaph Records and Fat Records had all the best bands. That's what we're discussing today. Chances are, if you're here, you might even be one of those Gen Xers. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much for joining. If you haven't already, please subscribe, get your comments in, hit the like button and the notification bell as well. Today is a style of music that is really diverse and quite close to my heart. We're going to be looking at 90s skate punk. The origins of skate punk can be traced pretty much back to the 1988 release of Bad Religion's legendary album Suffer. There is of course a lot more to it than that, but that would take a whole video in itself. It's also really important to note that the majority of these bands were formed in California, and even more concentrated, a lot of them from the Southern Californian area. Hence, another term used for this style of music is SoCal punk. So I'm going to use a 10 with Ben here to select 10 tracks from 10 different bands from the skate punk scene that I feel would be a good representative of the genre to someone who has no idea what it sounds like, what it entails. You know, kind of that premise that if aliens came down and said, okay, we want to talk music genres, what's this 90s skate punk that we hear about? This is 10 songs that basically you would give, and if you can hang with those, then you are probably worthwhile delving deeper into the genre. Of course, remember, this is completely subjective. You might be able to choose 10 other songs which might be way better at introducing someone not familiar with this sound to skate punk. I also want to make it really clear, fascinatingly enough, that 9 out of these 10 bands are all still going and still putting out new music and still touring. Also worth pointing out as well that although these bands have put a lot of material out post 90s, I have chosen 10 songs from that era just to be very clear and definitive. So let's start with the track that when I thought about doing this 10 with Ben was the first one that I knew was going to kick off our list of 10. Simi Valley, California's Pulley are a perfect example of skate punk. With skate punk bands, usually, more often than not, a lot of the members, or all of the members, as well as liking punk rock, are also metalheads. Pulley, with their technical playing and scooped guitar sound, are a perfect example of these two worlds colliding. This track is actually quite slow for what skate punk is normally known for, but I find it's had a really good pace. The melodies all over this track are absolutely brilliant. Funnily enough, vocalist Scott Radinsky wasn't a singer initially. He is well known for being a big deal in the baseball world and was a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Gone is from Pulley's third album, and Pulley are well known for having a lot of members come and go. They have stabilized actually quite a lot in the years since, but they interestingly enough, on this album have two former members of another band on this list. They feature Jim Cherry from Strung Out and Jordan Burns from Strung Out on guitar and drums respectively. Currently, Pulley still tour intermittently and last released a brand new album, The Golden Life, in 2022, and very well worth checking it out, as with all Pulley material is. Next up is one of the biggest hitters in the skate punk scene, having sold over 8 million albums worldwide. NoFX, like Bad Religion, who feature later on this list, have become one of those bands that are often adopted by people who aren't fans of the genre. Often metalheads will adopt NoFX as their favourite punk band. And you will often see NoFX's name appearing on bills of hard rock and metal festivals. Frontman, vocalist, bass player Fat Mike is actually the owner of Fat Records, which is one of the definitive skate punk record labels, and is seen as the label that contributed to the definition of the sound. Honestly, choosing a NoFX track was pretty difficult just because of the sheer volume of tracks that would best demonstrate both NoFX's sound and the skate punk sound. I just chose this one because it showcases everything, the hyper speed, the melody, the snotty attitude, and the fact that NoFX are like, I heard someone once describe them as the sloppiest, really tight band that you'll ever hear, which is a great description. They sound like they could go off the rails at any minute, but never do. I chose this track also because lyrically it shows the NoFX's humour and wit, and it kicks off their album that is my favourite of their 90s output. Now we come to the band that if most people, if their life depended on it, were told to choose one band that defines the sound of Californian skate punk, it'd be these guys.
Go ahead and try, keep track of mine. People of society are running for their lives. Give it now and go, never gonna know. Never gonna make it and your house is fine low. Give it one good try, give it all, fight till you die.
Jaw-droppingly tight, blisteringly fast, devastatingly heavy, and loads of melody. Fight Till You Die is a perfect calling card for the genre as a whole. Fight Till You Die comes from the band's fourth album, Full Circle, released on Epitaph Records, and has a whole extra dimension to it, an urgency, coming just a year after the tragic death of band founding member and bass player Jason Thirsk. Choose any of Pennywise's output though, and you will have skate punk done to perfection. Proving that skate punk wasn't just limited to California was Sweden's very own Millencolin.
Don't like me, don't like me, don't you know I'm good for nothing. Don't like me, what you told me when I called you up. Don't like me, don't you know I'm good for nothing.
Take a whole slab of Pennywise, add in a pinch of Bad Religion, and throw in a whole load of Beatles vocal melodies and harmonies, and you get Millencolin's 90s output. Any Millencolin album, whether it be the three albums from the 90s or any of the records that came after, are very well worth a listen. But Life on a Plate is definitely the pick of the three from the 90s. Hyper-fast drumming, a minor key melodic lead guitar line that propels the song on, great vocal melodies, make this just a great song to represent the genre. Not the biggest, arguably the most influential, and definitely known as the godfathers of skate punk. It can only be Bad Religion.
We got the American Jesus, see him on the interstate. We've got the American Jesus, he helped build the president's estate.
Bad Religion started in the early 80s and basically were just known as a melodic hardcore punk band. But the release of their 1988 album Suffer changed the whole landscape. As I said though, that's a whole different story. Recipe for Hate that American Jesus is taken from, in all honesty, is probably my least favourite of their 90s albums, but American Jesus is just such a iconic song, and that really quite menacing sounding riff is synonymous with skate punk. Bad Religion are a very, very special band, and led by highly intellectual Dr. Greg Graffin. His lyrics have always been a true standout in the skate punk scene. Bad Religion's songwriting has always centered around the aforementioned Graffin and guitar player Brett Gurewitz. American Jesus is unique in the fact that there's not a great deal of songs that were co-written by them both. You either had Graffin songs or Gurewitz's songs. Important to mention Brett Gurewitz as well, because you had Fat Mike from NoFX, who I mentioned started and owns Fat Records. Well, Brett Gurewitz started and owns Epitaph Records. Now, Epitaph Records, the majority of the albums on this list were released through Epitaph Records. Very hugely successful label, not in any small debt to the Offspring record that we're going to speak about shortly. But Gurewitz started Epitaph Records basically to release Bad Religion albums when no one else would do so. Now, speaking of the Offspring, Genocide is from the album Smash. Smash is known as the biggest selling independently released record of all time, having sold well over 12 million copies. And Genocide is the first song that I heard from this album, and I would credit it as being the album that got me into skate punk. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the legacy and reach of Smash, because that's a story that's been told over and over again, and a simple Google will give you all those details. But it is a fascinating story on what it did to the band, the punk rock scene, and Epitaph Records. Genocide for me has always been my favourite song on this album, and very, very, very much again is one of those definitive skate punk tracks. So if you like this track, chances are you're going to like a whole load of skate punk. No conversation about skate punk is complete without No Use for a Name.
And no one can save you from yourself. Pretend you're a superhero. Fucking zero. Trying to save the world.
No Use for a Name, sadly, are the only band on this list who aren't still either releasing music and or touring due to the frontman Tony Sly's tragic death. Tony sadly died in his sleep in 2012 at the age of only 41. No Use for a Name for the majority of their career were on Fat Records, and label owner Fat Mike of NoFX actually said that Tony Sly was his favourite songwriter of all time. So could have chosen any track off Making Friends, but I just tried not to think too hard about it, and Invincible was the one that I opted for. Making Friends as a whole is a perfect example of melodic skate punk, the more melodic end, but Making Friends is kind of where I see they perfected their earlier aggression with what was to come in their later career, which was a whole lot of gorgeous melody. Making Friends blends those perfectly, and just has some of the tightest playing that you'll hear in the genre. Tony Sly also has one of those voices that has a certain melancholic timbre to it, and is just listening to No Use for a Name is just made even more poignant now after Tony's passing. Another band integral to the 90s skate punk story, 10 Foot Pole.
Please let me take them. I don't want to be an idiot. Ritalin will make me smart. At least that's what my teacher said. All the other kids take them. Think I am the only one.
10 Foot Pole are actually the second band on this list that hail from Simi Valley, California. Interestingly enough, 10 Foot Pole, like Pulley, are also, if you look at their previous members, they read like a who's who of the world of skate punk. And their first couple albums actually featured Scott Radinsky, who is the singer of Pulley. This track is from the first album they did after his departure, and guitar player Dennis Jagard took over on vocals. ADD remains one of the band's most popular tracks, and it's hard to deny that it's just pure skate punk perfection. The heavy muted metallic guitar playing, and arguably ADD has one of the strongest choruses in this list that just is an absolute earworm and lodges itself in your brain and just refuses to leave. So listen with caution, because it'll stay there for a few days. Another skate punk band not from California, this time Canada's Gob. Gob are a strange band in the fact that they're probably more well known, to be honest with you, as the singer and co-vocalist Tom Thacker actually joined fellow Canadian punk band Sum 41 in 2006. A really accomplished guitarist, Thacker actually fit right in, because Sum 41 obviously is a band made up of metalheads, and Gob had a very metallic and riff-driven edge to them as well. Self-Appointed Leader is a great example of how metallic skate punk can be, and often is, and is essentially just a 3-minute thrash metal song. It's and then the whole second half of it is based around a really great hooky guitar line that then actually goes to a 3-part harmony as well. Gob really wearing their their heavy metal influence on their sleeves on this track. Now, with these lists on 10 with Ben, I often make a point of saying that they're in no order, but this time the saying, saving the best till last, definitely applies. Now, as someone that's known as a lover of music, I get asked a lot by people, what is your favourite band of all time, gun to head? Now, that's a hard one for any music lover to say, but if it was life or death situation, then it would be Strung Out. They have pretty much everything that I need and love about music. Some people call them skate punk, some people call them melodic hardcore, some people even call them like a pop metal band, which it kind of works, but Strung Out are, make no mistake, technically incredible. Songwriting chops are second to none, and are, in my opinion, the most underrated band that's ever existed. I laboured quite hard about which, it was always going to be off this album, because for me this is Twisted by Design is their best 90s album. I laboured and I thought, and I took advice from other Strung Out fans, and decided that opening track Too Close to See was as good an example as any off Twisted by Design to showcase skate punk as a genre. If you don't delight in all the amazing instrumentation, then at least you have the absolutely fantastic vocal talents and lyrical prowess of frontman Jason Cruz. So that's it. 10 songs that I feel are a really great introduction to skate punk. If you have 10 better songs, please feel free to put them down in the comments. I'll be really interested to know what your thoughts are. I have also made it dead easy. I've put a link in the description below, which is a link to the playlist of all these songs, so you can hear them all in order that we've done them on the video. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, subscribe if you haven't, hit the notification bell, leave any comments below, hit the like down below as well, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one. Stay rad.